right, welcome everybody to our Parrot Stars podcast. My name is Alexis Highland. I am the manager at Parrot Stars, and we are very excited to be doing this bonus episode of our podcast leading up to our summer festival because we have a very special guest joining us for this episode. We have the famous Michael the Parrot Wizard here with us today. So as many of you know, Michael has joined us the last 2 years of our summer festival, and he's going to be joining us again this year. So he was super generous with his time and agreed to hop on our podcast here so he can tell you all a little bit about himself. We can share with you kind of what our experiences have been the last 2 years of our summer festival, and then hopefully get you guys super excited for this coming year. I cannot wait. We have so many fun things planned for you all. So, Michael, thank you so much again for being with me today here for our podcast. Again, you've been working with birds for a long time. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got started in animal behavior, and then specifically what made you fall so madly in love with parrots specifically?
Hi, Alexis. So happy to get to chat with you and looking forward. It's just a few weeks till the summer festival. So excited about that. I started with parrots in 2008, but my love of birds and planes and anything that flies goes back to early childhood memories. I just always admired animals that can fly, birds, butterflies, you name it. And I just always thought birds are so cool because they could fly. And I think that it always brought different perspective for me into the parrot world, because I think a lot of people start with either a love of animals or they want a parrot that talks, whereas I started with like, I think it's so cool that they fly. So I've always just admired their freedom and the way they move about, and I think it gave me a perspective into them, unlike what was typical at that time. Clipping was just like the norm, and I think that I've been able to break those boundaries and inspire people to be able to keep their birds flighted. And I'm really happy that we got to do that with your store too. So I feel like I've been able to be an inspiration to people about that. And I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, hey, I started watching you 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and thanks to you, I've stopped clipping my birds. So I feel like my childhood fascination with things that fly was able to lead to that.
Oh, wonderful. Well, yes. So when we first met, we were still offering wing trims at the bird store, and through our friendship and kind of through all the things you've taught me and kind of all the things that we've observed just at our store with our own birds, but then also with customers' birds, we've moved away from wing trims completely. And it has been a huge, huge privilege to see how incredible they are when they're fully flighted, and how much it improves their behavior, and how well the bird community is responding to this change in philosophy about whether or not to clip their birds. So in addition to like your passion for caring for these animals and educating people on them, you're a phenomenal animal behaviorist, and you have a couple of parrots of your own that do tricks and behaviors that I think are relatively unmatched in the parrot world. So can you tell us a little bit about your background with animal behavior and kind of what led you to really diving into coaching people on how to create a better relationship with their companion parrot?
I found that my background in computer programming helped me understand parrot behavior and training better by really thinking of an A plus B equals C type of a environment. You know, I wouldn't say I'm unemotional, but I wouldn't say I'm super emotional about it. So I'm able to kind of just look logically that, hey, if I do this, it leads my bird to bite. And if I do this, it leads my bird to cooperate. So I've been able to just really observe kind of just how it works out from that original mindset. But the way I got into parrot training was when I got my first bird, was a cockatiel. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't take it out of the cage. I couldn't get it on my hand. If I tried to put my hand near it, it would bite me. So it was like, I have this pet and I want to do stuff, but I can't. How can I do that? So started looking into, what do you do with a bird? And, started learning about parrot training. And back then, unfortunately, almost all the info was just about how to teach them to do tricks. They skipped the whole part about how to do the basics. All the like videos or professional content would be like, okay, we have this professionally trained bird out here on a stand, and we're going to teach you how to teach your bird to wave. I'm like, that's all great, but my bird's in the cage. I can't even take it out to even do that. So I kind of had to bridge the gap and say, well, okay, all this stuff I learned about how to teach the trick, let me see if I can use that to teach the bird to come out and get on my hand and get to that stand so we could even start the training. And then I discovered that I'm not the only person who has this problem, that this is just something that is pretty universal to the parrot community. So I started making YouTube videos and DVDs and book and things like that to teach people not necessarily how to teach their bird to be a performing animal, but just how to get them to be a well-rounded pet that enjoys living in harmony with humans. And that's where I took that kind of professional trick parrot training type stuff and really just adapted and simplified it so that we can live with them in our home.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I mean, we push a lot of our customers to follow your platform and follow your content because I think you've been able to present it in a way that's very user-friendly. Like people can follow along with your suggestions and your advice in a way that's very actionable. And we can kind of give people a little background of how our friendship started and kind of what brought us here today, because I think a lot of the reasons that we've been so excited to have you part of our summer festival is because when I hear you talk about animal behavior and when I hear you describe how to create a wonderful relationship with the bird, it's so in line with our philosophies and kind of our observations with companion parrots. And you just have such a well-established, way of presenting the information to people that I really think it's a great relationship because we have so many customers that are looking for really well-established advice on how to create a better relationship with their parrot. So it's been fun having you partake in our activities in the summer festival. So for those of you who kind of aren't familiar with Michael and I's story, so Michael had the opportunity to visit our breeding program down in Florida about 3 years ago. And throughout that day that we had you come to the breeding program, we got to talking and I was like, man, this is the first time I've talked to somebody about pet parrots where I'm like, he gets it. Like he is talking about them in a way that's super respectful, but also extremely realistic. And we just kind of got to talking and we kind of got excited about how much good there can be done in this parrot community if people just had better resources on how to start positive reinforcement training, how to more or less hold themselves accountable for how much they're impacting their parrot's behavior. And so we left that trip and I was like, okay, we talked about having you maybe partake in the store in some way, having you come out for a talk. And I was like, well, why don't we wanted to do some give back to our customer base in some way. And we were kind of thinking about having some sort of festival or something. So I was like, why don't we kind of come together on this? We'll have you come in, do live presentations at the store, and we'll make it a fun weekend event. So that was to our first summer festival. And it was so much fun. I don't know about you, but that first year, it was a little smaller. It was not as big of a draw as we got last year. But yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about kind of how you started doing your training with your birds and kind of your experience with our first summer festival and kind of what you enjoyed of the last 2 years?
Oh, for sure. Like I said, I started training just because I wanted to be able to hold my bird, but then it turned into, okay, what do I do next? And what do I do next? And so when I got my Senegal Kili, I taught her a trick. And I'm like, okay, that was cool. That was fun. And it only took maybe 2-3 days, a week or two with a lot of practice. I'm like, wow, that was easy. This bird's smart, catches on. And then I taught another and another and another. And before you know it, in under a year, I taught her over 20 tricks. And I did a video that blew up viral on the internet and was really popular about doing 20 tricks in 2 minutes. And I found that we were best in line with each other and understood each other and having the best companionship and fun. I'm smiling. My bird is, well, they don't exactly smile, but I could see that glow in her eyes that she's having a great time and having fun. Every time we just do some training and teach a trick, because we have a mutual purpose together and it's clear and defined. I think when people handle their birds a lot or just try to, one moment they want to touch them and another moment they want to pick them up, another one moment they want to stick them back in the cage. These things are a little bit unpredictable, and sometimes, even though you're trying to do something nice to your bird this moment, maybe something you did that the bird didn't like, 10 minutes ago or 10 days ago for that matter, is making the bird hesitate for that one thing you want to do right now. And I found that by doing training and keeping everything positive reinforcement based, we were able to eliminate that hesitation and have like total mutual trust, so that I can handle her any moment and she can predict, hey, I'm going in the cage to get a meal rather than I'm going in the cage to get locked up. So we found a way to make every interaction be beneficial, not just to me or my wants, but also the bird's wants. And that eliminated biting 99.99%. I'll never say there's 100% elimination of biting, because there's still a wild animal that can still have instincts. But honestly, the handful of times I've been bit over more than a decade have really been where it's like completely not my fault, not my bird's fault, but like something weird happened, like another parrot is interfering and they squabble with each other and I just get caught in the middle of it, or something silly like that. But really, when you have a schedule, a routine, a way of doing things on a consistent day-to-day basis. So what starts as training, which is kind of a regimented, deliberate, purposeful dance routine you build up, eventually they just get you and there's no surprises. So the end goal isn't necessarily training and doing learning and education all the time, but by doing it some of the time, it creates that robust relationship that works in a casual way. Whereas if you just want to build a casual relationship without the training, it's very hit or miss, and there's a likelihood of having interference that some of the not so pleasant things you might inevitably need to do with the bird cause harm in your good day-to-day stuff. Whereas with the training, we can teach you that, yes, this unpleasant thing like trimming your nails or going back in the cage, we're going to work on it to make you want to do it, like make it so that you're enjoying it and like volunteering in it, so that we can eliminate anything that's unpleasant. Is we turn it into a pleasant thing. So suddenly now the bird has zero resentment toward us over those things that it might have not wanted to do because we got them on the same page. It's a lot more work, like teaching a bird to wear a harness or put on to wear a harness or let you trim its nails or even go back in the cage or come off your shoulder for that matter. These things take a lot more practice and reinforcement than like easy peasy stuff like dunk a basketball or step on my finger. Those things, there's kind of like no downside to it. So like a little treat and, you put the ball in, no problem. Like they pick up on that so easy. But coming off your shoulder, when they like it there so much, is such a downside to them. They're like, no, you suck, you took me off your shoulder, like you're terrible. Like that one come off the shoulder is easily worth dunking the basketball 10 times. Like the amount of displeasure of coming off the shoulder versus the pleasure of getting a seat for dunking a basketball. So that's why doing a bunch of training and like practicing and breaking it down to small steps. And that's why we have to work hard on teaching them to do the things that they don't want, so they wouldn't have any resentment or hard feelings. And then they just don't bite, and then they're just your friend and they're always comfortable and at ease with you. They never have that feeling that like, oh, they're going to make me get off their shoulder later and that's going to be unpleasant. Like there's no hard feelings because we really work all those problems out preemptively. And, that's a big part of what I do.
So I think that's a great description of your background and kind of your philosophy and why I felt so in line. And I think just watching how you work with your birds and how you present the training to the birds themselves, but then how you present the training to customers and your viewers, it's helping them understand that when you as the trainer or the bird owner are incredibly predictable and consistent and you're following these steps you're removing also a lot of the fear that I think a lot of companion parents experience. And when they're working with their human, it's not that they're terrified that you're going to do something very overtly bad to them, but it's the unpredictableness of the situation that makes them kind of hesitate. And maybe if they kind of get pushed past their boundaries, their instinct is to give that lunge or that nip. And so I think what you're describing, where the biting becomes a non-issue just out of pure interaction with the bird being so predictable and so engaging, the motivations change for the bird. And I think it's just a great way for people to realize like how much what they're doing impacts what their bird is perceiving and how their bird is behaving. And it's just like a great way to just step by step, slow things down, set very realistic goals and expectations for yourself. And I think the bird is just going to naturally respond well to that if you're executing it the way that it should be done.
Alexis, let me mention the flip side of this as well. I hate getting bit. In fact, one of my big motivations to learn to train my bird and do things kind of the right way was I was a little bit nervous. I was a little hesitant. I didn't want to get bit. And I work with a lot of people, and I could tell that they're nervous. They don't want to get bit. They're giving off bad vibes that are only encouraging biting. So I've developed a methodology, first and foremost for myself, then for my customers and people I've consulted and birds I've worked with, that I realized the bird is only half the issue. I'm not going to say half the problem, but it's half of what we got to do. Working on the people is the other half. You know, we can do all the work in the world on the bird, but if the person is uncomfortable or not, you know, in the right mood and the right mindset, it's going to just mess things up. It's going to make the person unpredictable, and the bird's going to be hesitant. So I've really worked out a choreographed routine of step-by-step how to work with the birds. And I don't really talk about this a lot in the information. There's not time to mention it, but I'll mention it here, is that the methodology is built so that the human is learning how to behave around the bird as much as the bird is learning to behave around the human. When you're using that clicker and target stick, you know, it's forcing you to keep 8 inches away from the bird rather than be right up to the bird because of the length of the stick. And following the methods, have your hands full of stuff so you can't accidentally touch the bird because you've got your clicker and your treat and your target stick. So the methodology and the way we do it actually forces the human to slow down a little. And it not only makes the human more predictable for the bird, but it actually helps the human discover, hey, the bird didn't try to bite me last time, the time before that, and the time before that. All the bird did was gently take the treat from my hand, so I'm less nervous around the bird. We're building trust. So some of this aspect of slowing down is as much for the human to kind of get comfortable and be able to predict what the bird is going to do, as well as making the human predictable for the bird. So it really goes both ways. And another little inside secret about the way my book was designed, it's a pretty long book. It's 200 some odd pages. It's a pretty long read, but inadvertently, I'm also trying to teach people patience. I want to say that slow down. Reading a book of this length, it's all informative. It's not just for filler, but taking the time to read this much information and think about it is the way that you should expect to work with birds. You're going to slow everything down, slow it down at their pace. You're going to get comfortable day by day. It's not going to happen instantly. You're not going to get comfortable with a bird instantly, and the bird's not going to get comfortable with you instantly. And it could vary. It could be that the human gets comfortable faster than the bird. It could be that the bird gets comfortable faster than the human. It could go both ways, really. It's very individualistic about every bird and every human. But until both are in equal harmony and equally comfortable with each other, it's not going to work. So if the human quickly gets over it, I mean, I've definitely met some people who are very bold. They're like, bite me for all I care. You know, I'm not scared of you. You're just a bird. The problem is that's going to make the bird uncomfortable, and it didn't give the bird enough time. On the flip side, I've seen some of the sweetest birds that like wouldn't harm a soul. They're not trying to bite, but the human is nervous. The bird's just using its beak to step on the hand. It's not even trying to bite. It's so gentle and nice, but the human's uncomfortable. And the human's going to be, their hand's going to get shaky. They're going to drop their hand. Things are going to happen. And that's going to teach the bird to bite. That bird wasn't going to bite. It was just going to lean on the hand to step up. But the hand's shaky and uncomfortable. So the bird's going to grab the hand and be like, wait, stabilize your hand for me, please, so I can get on it. And in the process, the bird actually learns to beak and bite on the hand more than it did beforehand. So it cannot work unless both the bird and the human are trusting and comfortable. And that only happens through doing the exercises and giving it time that you can know and predict each other so that there's no fear in something unexpected happening.
So your book, The Parrot Wizard's Guide to a Well-Behaved Parrot, okay. When you came to the summer festival the first year, we had a special event centered just around you on that Friday night, and it was a book signing. And I'm not just saying this because you're my friend. I really love your book, and I really encourage people to read it because it is an investment in the reader and it's an investment in the bird. Exactly what you're saying. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's not meant to be an instant gratification pet. I think if people want a pet that's going to give them all the things they want from it the next day, maybe get a puppy or a kitten because they give you what you want right away. A parrot's love and trust is definitely earned over time. And I think the book is extremely valuable and usable for people and for readers because you take them through start to finish. And I think it functions really well because you take an approach for both types of bird ownership, for people who are starting out with a brand new baby, but then also people who are taking on an adult bird that maybe has been in previous homes that maybe has some bad habits or some really ingrained fears.
It's actually 3 because the third one, so the first one is getting a baby from a store. The second one is getting an adult from someone else. The third one is getting your parrot from yourself. You might.
Oh, this is true.
Maybe the bird was sweet as a baby. Maybe you got busy. Maybe you got sick and, you lost the continuum of the good things going on. It's also a way to go back and rekindle and recreate and redevelop that for yourself as well.
Totally. And I think just the way that you break it down from like making sure that the parrot's enclosure is incredibly enriching, but also safe. Going through their diet, going through the toys, talking about how to invest in understanding training before you start the training. Like actually learn what positive reinforcement is, learn what the actual clicker does, what its purpose is, why the target stick is so valuable in teaching the bird what you're asking it to do. So there's a big section that just talks about like, before we even get started, let's just make sure we know step by step what we're going to do before we get started. And something that we always recommend to our customers, and I think you conveyed it very well the first 2 summer festivals that you came and worked with our customers, is like plan your interactions before you have them. And I know that like I've heard you say that in your various talks. And I think that's the takeaway that our customers who have heard you speak at our store in the past, that was like one of their greatest takeaways, is that like they walked away from your talks feeling like they had a plan in place. Like they could go home, kind of literally get their physical objects that they're going to need in order first, and actually think about their interactions before they're starting them, before they open that cage door. Like, are we even ready to open the cage door? Do we need to start outside the cage? And I think undeniably when someone watches you engage with your birds, like it's undeniable. Your birds are incredibly well behaved, and they came across the country for the summer festival. You like literally flew them here on your plane. Like they are in front of people that they've never met before. They're in a room that's completely unfamiliar, and yet they're doing every single thing that you're asking them to do. And I think it inspired a lot of hope for people. It really allowed them to see like the potential that they have with their own companion parrots at home. It's just really incredible.
Oh yeah, I'm really glad. And the thing is that I feel that it's a very reproducible approach. It's one thing to have a knack with birds. I mean, I've definitely met people who have no idea like what they're doing, why they're doing it, but birds just like them and it just works. And I wouldn't tell them like you have to do it any different. Like that's fine. But then as soon as their husband walks in the room or as soon as a friend comes or whatever, like they can't, it's not transferable. They can't get someone else to be able to do it. Whereas the methodology that I've been using, I can use it, first of all, on every different bird. It's not just my bird that's going to listen and behave and, you know, have a good relationship. It's every bird I interact with, I can use this. And it is, by the way, a methodology, not a specific, like, exact thing, because it is adjusted bird by bird. Part of the system is getting feedback and making adjustments. The concept of positive reinforcement is not the same thing as rewards and treats. Rewards and treats are foods that are supposed to be tasty. Positive reinforcement is actually defined by the outcome. It is giving something that increases behavior. So that means that if the treat that you're giving, it might be a delicious treat. You might love it. Your other bird might love it. You might have spent a lot of money buying this delicious treat. But if it does not increase the behavior, then it's not positive reinforcement, even though it is a treat. So it is a system that takes feedback from what's happening. And if it works, then you continue doing it. If it doesn't work, you need to find what works. So by having a system, I can do this with a multitude of different birds, and it works every time. It doesn't work the same with every bird. I adjust it as needed with every bird, but it works with every bird. And likewise, I can transfer it to other people because I can teach them the method and the system rather than relying on just having a knack or a certain disposition that's good with birds.
Really quickly, maybe we should describe kind of the format of the summer festival and how you're featured throughout. So you're coming in from New York, which is incredible. And thank you for doing that, by the way. And so the last 2 years, you've brought your own companion parrots with you, and you've done incredible live demonstrations with them. So like we've done the last 2 years, this year again, we have a Friday night dinner with the Parrot Wizard, which is just a super fun night. It's a ticketed event. We do dinner, drinks, and then a like more or less meet and greet and a little bit more elevated talk for those customers, since that's a ticketed event. So we're going to follow that same format again this year. But then throughout the day, Saturday and Sunday, you're going to be speaking and presenting. And people loved it last year. I mean, without a doubt, like those rooms filled up super quickly because people were excited to hear all that you had to say, excited to see the presentations. I think the first year kind of legitimized that people can come to your presentations and actually leave with content that they can take home and like use for their own parrots. So it was extremely successful the last 2 years. And this year we're switching things up a little bit. We have a slightly different plan in place. And I give all the props to you. This was your idea, and I'm super excited about it. So can you tell us a little bit about what customers can expect for this year 2024 Summer Festival and kind of what you're going to be doing with the birds that you're bringing?
Okay, well, I like to mix things up. I'm not one of those presenters that stands in front of a PowerPoint and talks the same talk every year in a row. You know, I love going to see the same presenters again if I like what they do, but it doesn't mean I want to see the same presentation. So this year is going to be completely different than any of the previous presentations. But not only that, it's going to be the first of its kind like this as well. So this year, instead of bringing my birds for the event, I'm bringing your birds from the Parrot Stars store. So what we're doing this year is Parrot Stars sent me 3 of their babies about a month ahead of the summer festival, and I've been preparing and training with them to use them for all the presentations. Frankly, ideally, I could have just done it with the store birds right there on the spot. But the thing is, they'd be nervous. There'd be a crowd. They just wouldn't be prepared. They would probably clam up, even if they were pretty friendly and good in general, but you put them in front of that kind of environment, and that might be overwhelming. So I felt that by spending a few weeks to prepare the birds in advance, then they can almost pretend like it's their very first time doing it, because the crowd and the whole circumstance is probably going to make them clam up to some degree. But when they clam up, it'll probably be where they're going to behave the way they would the first time you're training them, rather than just as if they never knew anything to begin with. So I think that they're going to be totally ready on time, and it's going to be incredible. So on Saturday and Sunday, the presentations, I will be demonstrating some of the things I taught them and explaining and showing on them how I taught them to step up and allow me to touch them and, do some of these basic things that we work on with parrots that you can learn about in my book. But on Friday, it's going to be completely different. We're going to turn it entirely upside down. You, the audience, can come and be the trainer. Ideally, hopefully, if everything goes to plan, I'm not going to touch the birds once. If all goes to plan, you, the audience, are going to be coming up. This is going to be a workshop event, and the audience is going to be doing the training, from taking them out of the cage to teaching them a trick that they don't even know yet up on stage in front of everyone. We'll see how far we can get. We'll see what the birds are good for, but I'm going to talk you through. I'm going to talk the audience through, have different people come up, and I'm going to let them do it with their own hands. I've had a lot of practice doing this with my customers and teaching people, so I'm pretty comfortable that we'll be able to have a lot of progress and really help you try with your own hands, but also we can learn from each other's mistakes. It's one thing to watch someone do everything where it's choreographed and goes to plan, but having the audience come up to do it, we don't really know what's going to happen, and we're just going to say, I'd never thought of this happening, but since it happened, let's address this issue, because this is probably something you're going to face in your home with your bird. And let me also say this is going to be a very valuable set of presentations, whether you're about to get a bird from Parrot Stars, then this is absolute, cannot miss. You have to, if you got a bird in the last few months, or you're getting a bird in the next few months, you have to see these presentations. But just because you got a bird 5 years ago doesn't mean that you might not get another bird in the future. So again, seeing how we're going to work on the basics will help you prepare for that future bird. But also, if you have a bird, this can help you maybe improve or rekindle your relationship. Sometimes going back to those basics can be really valuable. You might have a bird that steps up decently most of the time, but not all the time. Sometimes it bites, it gives you trouble. Going back to these basics can help get that improvement so that you wouldn't have those trouble. Or sometimes I worked with an older African gray, a 12-year-old gray, where the owner had the bird for 11 and a half years, not a problem. He never did any training. He didn't really do things right, but for some reason it just worked out. They clicked, and whatever happened to work, they had the continuity of doing it every day, that everything was fine. But then the owner got injured, and he was out of commission for a good half a year, and the bird just had to be taken care of by others, and he couldn't really give the bird time. And once he got better and was ready to rekindle with the bird, it was like a whole other bird. It was kind of like adopting someone else's bird all of a sudden. They lost the continuity of doing things on a day-to-day basis and maintaining the earlier relationship they had. And this is where training was just so valuable, because we could not just magically bring back, what got lost. By training the bird just like we would a new rehome or a new baby or just starting over again, we were able to work on this. So that's where I feel that this training is super beneficial, whether you've got a great relationship with a bird or you're just starting out, so that if things ever get shaken up, or the bird gets older, or the bird gets hormonal, or, just things change over time, having that knowledge and preparation can help. So yes, we're going to do a little bit more basic things this year. We're not going to do nail file and harness and trick training. We're going to do how to take the bird out of the cage when you just got home, how to start having that bird step up, how to get the bird to come out of the cage initially, how to be comfortable around the bird, how to get the bird to be comfortable around you. So we're going to really slide back and get down to the nitty-gritty basics that everyone tends to take for granted, but we're going to go back and actually show you with these birds that came from the store, that I haven't worked with for 15 years, that I've only had just about a month, not even, to work on a little bit just to prepare them. And we're going to do it with them right in front of you on stage. We're going to show you how to do all those basics. Saturday and Sunday, I'll be doing the talks and presentations and showing you what they're doing. But on Friday, the ticketed event, I bet it's sold out by now. So you're real lucky if you got a ticket. And listen, it's sold out. So if you didn't get your ticket in advance, you might not be able to come this year. Get your ticket for next year's Friday event ASAP. Don't wait. This is a lesson for next year, that these tickets sell out, and you got to get them early if you want to make it to the ticketed event. It's going to be incredible.
So yeah, we're basically sold out for Friday night for this year. If you guys want to see the talks and the presentations put on by Michael, the Parrot Wizard, make sure you are getting to the summer festival early because we have a huge education room, but it's still going to like fill up quite quickly. I think we filled up the entire room for all 3 talks on Saturday and Sunday for you last year. So make sure you're getting there early so you can get into that education room and get your seats. Because it fills up really quickly. There is a little bit of standing room in the back if people are really, really eager to see. But if you want to have a chair and actually sit through the presentations, make sure you're getting there early. But yeah, I think something you said, like taking it for granted. I think you can't take for granted like how valuable building a strong foundation with your bird is. And like I just recently rewatched the harness training DVD. And I think kind of like the greatest takeaway that I got from watching that DVD and kind of listening to you talk is that as you're trying to do more advanced things like you just mentioned, the harness, doing some of the tricks, turning on command, you can have good and bad days, or the bird might be picking up different skill sets at different paces, but you can always kind of like rewind and go back a step and kind of reignite some of what maybe the parrot's getting frustrated by, or if you're not seeing a lot of results, you can always go back as long as the person has taken the right steps to build that foundation. Because once that foundation is laid, it's really hard to break it. And I think the other great thing about your approach and your suggestions to people is that when that foundation is laid very, very well, and you're starting the initial positive reinforcement training, and then you're introducing the clicker and they're introducing the target stick, I think when people realize that then multiple people, like in the household, husband and wife, or a mother and daughter, somebody else can step into that training position. So the bird's on its T-stand. It knows it's in a training mode. Somebody should be able to more or less step into that position if the foundation is what it's supposed to be and do those tricks. And I think that's what you're kind of describing for the Friday night, is that you've only had 30 days with these 3 birds. You've made an impact. You're doing the training. But the concept is to show people that when the training is structured in a way that's usable and the bird is responding to, a complete stranger should be able to step into that training role and still execute some of the training and have the bird respond well to them. And I'm really excited about that element because I think I hear that frustration from people a lot. Like, oh, it's easy because like he's been working with his birds for so long, or like your birds at the store are so nice because they love you and you are seeing them every day. And I'm like, well, yes, but then also come over here. Rascal will sit on her stand and she'll take the treat from you and touch the target stick and do all the things because the training foundation is there. So I think that's going to be a great thing for people to kind of like really observe and experience, that like anyone can do it as long as you kind of set those skills early on for the bird.
Exactly. And another big feature of how we're doing this format this year is I'm taking videos and presenting the process of how I'm working with these babies from the early stage. So we're not only going to present the results of, it's just 30 days. It's not really a lifetime. It's not a long time at the event. But day by day, we are posting a ton of videos of what are we doing on the first day? What are we doing a weekend? How are we working with them to step up? All these basics. I'm posting it on the All Parrots YouTube channel. And you can meet the birds, you can see the training we're doing, you can follow along. So when you come to the event, you'll know their background, you'll know how we started out, how was the bird when it first got to me, and how is the bird at the event. You're going to get to see the relationship and the skills blossom over this period of time. You're going to get to see the steps. We're going to recap and show you the results and explain how we got there at the event, but you can actually see how it's happening on these videos in preparation to build up the excitement, to kind of learn as we go and see those little bits and pieces as we go. So be sure to follow and subscribe to the All Parrots YouTube channel where we're posting pretty much daily. We got so much progress and so many cool things to share with these babies. We're posting daily, so follow along with that, and then come to the Parrot Stars Summer Festival. If you got your ticket early, come to the Friday event, and you can get to work with these birds that you've watched in these videos developing. If you didn't have a chance to get a ticket, come Saturday or Sunday and see the presentations. Another thing I should mention about the presentations is on Saturday and Sunday, I think we have a total of 4 presentations. Every presentation is different. So even though we're not announcing the topics in advance because these birds are still young, they're not so expert that I can promise you that, you know, they're going to do this and this at this hour. I'm going to defer to them to see their condition and what they're ready to do. And we're going to choose the topics right as we're ready to go, but the topics will be different. So if you have the opportunity to stay for the entire day, don't think that because you've seen the morning presentation that there's no reason to come to a repeat of the same presentation in the afternoon. Every presentation will be different topics. We'll be sharing a lot. I've got more to share with you than I have time for in 4 presentations. So you're going to want to come to as many of them as you can. The only thing is we're just not going to promise a specific topic at a specific hour just because the birds are still young. They are traveling. They might be a little overwhelmed. We don't want to pressure them. I don't want the pressure that I promised you a certain topic and now I'm going to pressure the bird to say, hey, we promised to show people this at this hour. You got to do it now. That's also a big part of successful parrot training, is to take the pressure off, not to feel that there's a deadline or that you have to perform. If these babies come to Parrot Stars on for this summer festival on Saturday, they tell me, this is too much for me, I don't want to do it, they can go back in their cage and they don't have to do it. That's so important. We're not going to torment these young, impressionable, not yet even fully developed animals and say, just because there's a crowd, just because you bought a ticket, that we're going to do anything to them. And I think I'm pretty confident, but I'm not going to say 100%, but I'm pretty confident that by taking that pressure off, by not saying that there's any demand, we're just playing. We're doing the same stuff we were doing every day just for fun. We're just going to do it, but there happens to be 100 people sitting there watching. That's going to be the only difference. But that's the whole thing, is you don't want to go into it with a pressure scenario like that. So likewise, don't promise your friends that I'm going to show you my parrot. My parrot's going to come out and talk for you and show you tricks. Take that pressure off and just let your parrot be itself, and then it'll be much more comfortable and show you what it knows rather than feeling like you got to do something. A place where this happens more than any other is probably when it comes to the harness. What a huge problem is, people look at the weather outside and they say, wow, summer's here. It's beautiful. I want to take my parrot outside. Luckily, hopefully by now people got the message that you shouldn't take your bird outside unrestrained. So they know that it's a good idea to use a harness. But the problem is they say, hey, it's already July. Summer's going to be over soon. I want to start going out and having fun, and they want to pressure the parrot that either I want to put this harness on you immediately today and go out, or even if they're going to follow the DVD and do the training, people are like, well, I got to do this in a week. Summer's going to be over soon. We got to do this. And that pressure ruins everything. And the parrot feels targeted. That's kind of what predators do. They target and pressure the bird to do something against its will. And that's kind of why instinctively they're not inclined to wear a harness, because they feel like they're being forced to do something. The whole thing about effective harness training and effective training in general is to say, you don't have to do it. You can do it for your fun. You could do it at the pace that you're going to be comfortable with. And then they don't feel that pressure and they learn it genuinely. And I especially starting out, I was very impatient, and I'd say I'm still very result driven and kind of impatient. I've learned that the fastest, most efficient way to get to the end goal that you have is to be patient. You throw all the deadlines in the garbage, throw them out of your mind, forget it. If it takes all year until next summer to train your bird to wear that harness, so be it. When you take that pressure off and you forget it, then you're like, wow, in a week we got halfway through the harness training, or we got a quarter way, and you're happy with those results and you're chill. And before you know it, you know, the results happen because you didn't have that pressure and the bird's not nervous, and it just starts to work. And I found that I got to my end results that I wanted to reach faster than when I was being demanding and saying, we got to do this today. We got this deadline. You know, I got 30 days to train these babies. What I did was I didn't promise any specific results of what these babies are going to do in 30 days. I said, let's see how much we can accomplish in 30 days, and whatever they do, that's what we'll do. And guess what? When you have that kind of attitude, you get further, and the birds don't feel targeted or pressured, and you actually have better results.
Yeah, this is the exact reason why we love having you come to the store. Because like when I listen to you talk about birds and like parrots and the training process, like you're so grateful for the little wins, and you're able to like put yourself in their shoes and realize like, you know what? They're just existing on the planet. Like they don't have a motivation to please us other than that they're just trying to survive, and they're social creatures. So they might do things to get our attention, but it's just treating the bird with so much respect and like listening to it, watching its behavior, reading its body language, and just being kind to it. Just be kind and be respectful and be patient. And all those extra really cool things are going to happen. It might take a little work, and it might take longer than a person might have expected or anticipated, but the reward and the payoff is going to be so worth it, because the bird is going to enjoy the entire process. And I think just what you're saying, when you take the pressure off the parrot, off yourself, you remove the expectations, and you're just trying to like each day walk away a little bit better than the day prior, it's going to be fun. It's going to be super rewarding, and the results are going to happen. They're going to come with time. So it is super inspiring to hear you talk like that, because it's totally doable. Like people can do this. And I think when you were telling me about your idea to take on the 3 Parrot Stars babies, and you're like 30 days out, we're going to ship them on 30 days out. I'm going to be at 30 days with them. I'm like, I love this, because 30 days in the parrot world seems to be like people's expectation. Like if I don't have the relationship I wanted in 30 days, it's a failure. Like that 30-day buffer of like the quarantine or like the adjustment period, if that ends and the bird isn't exactly what the person hoped it was going to be, there's like this massive like disappointment. Our goal with you taking on these 3 babies, and I think what you're trying to really portray to people is like, whether we finish our goal for all 3 of these birds or not, like any progress we've made is a positive. And each bird is going to be totally different. It's 3 different species. It's a cockatiel, a sun conure, and an Indian ringneck, all extremely different levels of like innate confidence and personalities. I mean, I think you're seeing those are 3 very dynamic birds, but it's like going to show people, hey, in 30 days, just take what you've gotten. Like if you are following the positive reinforcement suggestions, you're following your guide, here's what is actually functionally achievable in 30 days. And I think it's going to really help people see that like they're doing a good job, even if they think they might not be, or inspire hopefully some hope that if they didn't get where they wanted to be in those first 30 days with their birds, or maybe the first 3 years with their bird, like if they've just like been plugging along and they've had their bird for a while and they're just still struggling with certain behaviors, like it's never too late to get started, and you can always get those initial training steps. So I think it's going to be a great thing for all varying levels of parrot ownership experience, different aged birds. I think it's really going to show people like this is what parrot ownership really is. If you want the hardcore transparency of what to expect in 30 days with 3 small species, like this is going to be it.
Yeah, for sure. And you really got to think about parrots much more as a 30-year project, not a 30-day project. I'm taking 30 days to kind of show you how to get started. This is a lifetime thing that you're going to experience. And, you know, when you've had parrots for 10, 20, 30 years, you look back and what happened in 30 days, the patience to not touch the bird for 30 days or even 30 months, if that's what it takes, is hardly anything when 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in, that bird is confident with you. You have a great relationship. You could scratch its head and open the pin feathers and, you know, have all these things going for you, not blowing it by rushing to get to too far too soon with a bird and then making it stressed out and maybe uncomfortable with you because, you know, you couldn't give it the time to get comfortable and build that trust, it's not worth it. Especially when you get your first bird, it's very tempting. You just want to start doing stuff. You know, you watch videos online of people who have success with their bird, or they're just showing the good moments, whatever that may be. There's a bit of a thing where people feel a pressure, and I think this is all about everything when it comes to social media. People feel like everyone else has got it better. It could just be because they're just seeing the highlights, or they're seeing the end result of many years of progress, whatever that may be. They feel like if they're not getting that with their bird, that they might be either that their bird is doing something wrong or they're doing something wrong. And I'm here to assure you that's not the case. These are living, breathing creatures. They're undomesticated. Even though they're domestically raised, they're undomesticated genetically. So they have wild instincts. They have wild ways that they want to be. And it's all about working on that and developing it patiently. And in my opinion, if you can defer gratification, if you can put it off by at least 30 days, but preferably a bit longer, and say, I'm going to be worried more about being friends and being able to handle and touch and do these kind of things 30 or more days out instead of on day one or a week in, that bird is going to be so much more just adjusted and used to the environment, used to the routine, used to you, that it's going to actually get to enjoy that interaction instead of being forced into that interaction because you jumped the gun and wanted to reach that stuff sooner than it needs to be. So that's a big reason why I decided that 30 days is the amount of time I want to work with, because I wanted to show you that 30 days of delayed gratification is already such a difference and so much better than trying to touch that bird on day one and get involved sooner than the bird is ready for. Another thing that I'm doing is I'm treating these babies that I'm working with pretty much the exact same way I would treat my birds or treat a rehomed parrot. It's the same way I've trained older parrots that the owners couldn't keep any longer. I've trained them same way. It doesn't matter if the bird is 30 years old or 3 months old. You should not take advantage of them for being a baby. You shouldn't write them off for being old. If you treat them with dignity and respect and patience and use the right methodology, we don't expect things to just happen by themselves either. Be patient and take the time, but at the same time, work on it gradually. It doesn't matter if the bird is 30 years old or just 3 months old. That patience and that chance to let them show you what they're comfortable with, give them opportunities to discover what you want them to do. Don't just do it for them. Don't do it for them. Let them do it with their own little feet and little wings. Then they will actually learn what you want from them and do a great job. The timeline can be a little different. Maybe the older bird might take a little bit longer. The younger bird might learn a little quicker, but that's not always the case. You can have an older bird that picks up on things very quickly because it's more mature and has experience, and the youngster needs time to learn. That's the whole thing, is you treat each bird individually. You use the same method that works with other birds, but then you allow the timeline to adjust to that individual. And it could be that one bird can pick up something in 30 days and another takes 3 years, but you accept that. You accept it as a lifelong project. And when you look back 5 or 10 years later, whether it took 3 days, 3 weeks, or 3 months to accomplish certain goals with a bird, completely washes out. You completely forget about how long that took because you've had years and years of successful, great relationship with that bird since.
Well, Michael, I love listening to you talk. I literally could do this for hours on end. I hope you're willing to come back and join our podcast again in the future. I think there's like endless things that we can talk about and information to be shared. So first of all, thank you so much for participating in our podcast today. And again, thank you so much for participating in our summer festival the past 2 years. I am so excited for this year. I think it's been a great friendship. I think it's been really rewarding for our customers. I know it's been really rewarding for our staff. I know that since we've gotten to know you, like our resident parrots, like we've seen massive strides in their personality and their behaviors because we're applying the things that you're recommending and we've learned from you. So I am super excited for you to be back again. So we'll give everybody just the quick rundown of the festival. So This year, our summer festival at Parrot Stars in Arlington Heights, Illinois, is going to start July 19th. That's our Friday night dinner with the Parrot Wizard. That's a ticketed event. There's only, as of today, 2 tickets left. So we'll call it sold out for the sake of this podcast. But do not worry if you did not get a ticket to the Friday night with the Parrot Wizard dinner. Saturday and Sunday are still going to be incredibly rewarding for you. So come on out to our location in Arlington Heights at Parrot Stars. We're going to have Michael be speaking 3 different times on Saturday throughout the day, and an additional bonus talk on Sunday before he heads back home to New York. So, and again, you're bringing 3 Parrot Stars babies back with you to do these presentations. So if you guys want to partake in our summer festival, make sure you're arriving early Saturday and Sunday. But if this is new information for you and you're just starting to learn about either Parrot Stars, Michael the Parrot Wizard, or the Parrot Stars Summer Festival, we will have links in the show notes. There you can follow Michael on all parrots. You can learn more about him. You can learn more about Parrot Stars on our website, and then we'll have the link to the Summer Festival where you can find the entire itinerary and the breakdown of all 3 days.
And I also have to say, I'm really impressed with the Parrot Stars store. I thought it was so inspirational that you guys are so enthusiastic about the birds, that you're willing to learn and improve. And I'm just so impressed with the fact that you guys started keeping the birds flight in the store. That's so cool. That's so much fun. I love coming there and seeing them flying around and being themselves, being birds, like actually appreciating them for what they are. But at the same time, doing it in a responsible and careful way. Like, you can't just have a wild free-for-all either. You got to have a balance. And that's the whole thing. It's all about balance and harmony. We're trying to be friends with our birds and our birds be friends with us. We're trying not to take advantage of them, and we're trying to be kind to them, but we're also trying to get some reciprocation and enjoyment out of them as well. It's all about having both. Everyone should be happy, and I think that you've been doing a great job at helping share that balance with your customers. I'm so impressed with these babies, like the condition that they arrived in, how naturally good dispositions they have. Having a bird that shows up in good plumage, that's on a good diet, that's healthy, that's been checked, that's been tested, but also how the birds are treated. You know, the fact that these birds are raised flighted, they're raised around people, the fact that they're not, you know, terrified of people, that they're used to this treatment and things, sets you up. That I found these babies easy to train, not just because the methods, but also they are well prepared. So I feel that a customer starting out, following my book and following what we're teaching at the Summer Festival with one of these babies is going to be ahead and have an easier time. And it's a shortcut. I think it's totally fine to get the vicious, aggressive, neglected adult rescue. I think it's fine. It's great. And they will learn too. They can be trained. You can enrich their life. Like, there's no reason to say don't do that. But if you feel that a baby is right for you and you're choosing between places, having that head start is just going to make you feel that reward for your training, that it's working. If you have a bird that's not going to reciprocate for 6 months or a year, sticking it out with the training method, it will pay off. It will work. But not having that instant feedback is harder, especially if you're a beginner. If you're used to training multiple parrots in the past and you know that if you stick it out long enough, eventually it'll work, it gives you the motivation to keep trying. But having a bird that's already ready and more predisposed to being friendly and learning around people, it's still a project. It's a kit. You have to think of a parrot, whether it's an adult or a baby, as something that you receive, like a model that you got to assemble and put it together and paint it. And it's not arriving ready built, painted, and ready to mount. It's something that you have to put together with your own hands. And even if you get an already trained baby, even if you get an already trained bird, you still need to customize it and develop your unique personal relationship with that bird, regardless how friendly and nice it already is. Even if you don't need to do a lot of training with the bird, you still need to customize your personal relationship for that fit. And what I like about the store, what I'm really impressed with the babies that I've received to work with, is that they have a better head start. They don't have trauma. They're not coming with baggage. So again, not that you can't work with a bird with baggage, not that you should give up on your bird if it has baggage, but particularly if you're less experienced, if you want quicker results, if you want it to be a little easier, you got to do the training, you got to put the work in, but it'll come more naturally. It'll make more sense when you get a more prepared and better raised baby. So I definitely think that the store is doing a terrific job with that. Terrific job doing the summer festival, providing the education, spending the time to talk to everyone who buys a bird about what to do, not just taking your money and shoving you out the door and then now it's your own problem. They're taking the time to make sure that you can succeed. They care about their babies so much that they don't want to let you walk out the door without the information how to continue with it. Because I know, like, having spoken with Alexis and seen her work with customers, that she would be upset for someone to walk out the door and mistreat their baby out of ignorance because they didn't know that you're supposed to do something. So if anything, she might talk to someone getting a bird too long and too much because she's worried about the baby and she wants the baby to be healthy and successful in the new home. And you benefit from that. And you benefit from that even if you already have a bird from before and you come to the store to buy some supplies or things like that. You still benefit from getting your stuff from people who actually care about birds and can share that with you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the compliments.
So I'm super excited about the summer festival. I can't wait to be there. I'm not bored of this at all. This is the third year in a row. It's going to be even better and more exciting than the last one. We keep beating the previous year. We keep doing new things. This program with training the birds for 30 days and bringing them to this festival is the first time this has ever been done. And I think it's going to be so informative. Not that what we did in the previous years wasn't fun and exciting, but it's just going to be different. It's going to be different. And next year is going to be different. Every time we're going to learn more and build on what we've learned in the past. So if you've been to previous summer festivals, you can't miss this. If you haven't been to a summer festival, you especially can't miss this. And be sure to prepare yourself, do your homework, follow the YouTube videos I'm making of how we're preparing these birds so that when you're there, you're going to be even more excited to see what we've built on. So subscribe to All Parrots on YouTube, and you can find all the links and other supporting information from parrotwizard.com. I can't wait to come to Parrot Stars again for the summer festival, and you should be excited too.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael. And thank you again for joining me for the podcast today. For all those listeners out there, thank you guys so much for continuing to support this little podcast. If you're listening in and you've enjoyed our podcast, please make sure to rate and review it, share it, download it. All the little feedback you guys give really helps boost the podcast. Again, in the show notes, we'll have all the links to where you can find more information about the Summer Festival and then the Parrot Wizard as well. And as always, everyone, be kind to your parrot and it will be kind to you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michael. And we will see you all at the Summer Festival.